Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, the 2019 Land Technology Accelerator Program Showcase. My name is Amanda Maroney, and I am the Education Manager for the Realtors Land Institute, and I'll be your host for today. Before we begin with our presentations, I would like to provide some information about our organization. The Realtors Land Institute, the voice of land, continually strives to maintain its status as the acknowledged leader for all matters pertaining to the land real estate profession. RLI endeavors to remain the essential membership organization for the extraordinary real estate professionals who broker, lease, sell, develop, and manage our most precious resource, the land. Here to provide our members the expertise, camaraderie, and resources that are the foundation for all land real estate professionals to become the best in the business. While this webinar does not count as credit towards the RLI's Elite Accredited Land Consultant ALC designation, it is filled with valuable expertise. Today's webinar, the Land Technology Accelerator Program Showcase, will spotlight our 2019 top new technology winners, DroneUp and terraPulse, which were voted by our Future Leaders Committee. During this webinar, they will showcase the latest technologies available in the land real estate industry that can help land agents and how their services are extremely complementary of each other. Before I get started with our presentation, I will also mention that at the end of the hour, we will have some time for Q&A. So at that time, feel free to submit your questions in the chat box function. And also, we do ask you all to keep yourselves on mute throughout the session, but then once it comes time to the Q&A, you feel free to unmute yourself to ask your question as well by audio or through the chat box function. So now to begin with our first presenter, DroneUp is a comprehensive drone pilot network of single pilots and pilot organizations for hire, which provides on-demand local information on any property or job site. With DroneUp, I would like to introduce Joe Filler, the Chief Information Officer, and I will now turn it over to you, Joe.
Terrific. And I think you have to relinquish it to me.
Oh, yes. Sorry about that.
No problem.
Okay. I just granted you co-hosting rights, so you should be able to go ahead and share. Okay. All set.
All right. Thank you, Amanda, and thanks to RLI for inviting us to be part of this webinar. It's terrific. Land Technology Accelerator webinar. It's a mouthful, and hopefully we'll share a few nuggets with you all that can help in your land marketing efforts. I'm Joe Fuller, the CIO of DroneUp, and my primary responsibility is to develop drone capture strategies that provide actual real value to our customers. So not just figure out how to do drone stuff, but have the results and the deliverables provide a value that makes everybody some more money. We are going to go through 28 slides, and only 3 of them talk about DroneUp at the end. We're going to talk about standard drone marketing, which I'm sure all of you are familiar with. I know when I attended the last conference, I think almost everyone raised their hands when they said they're utilizing drones already. So we're going to talk about what people are doing today and maybe expand those horizons a little bit about what's potentially possible using drones for marketing. And that's discussion of advanced drone marketing. And at the very end, we'll talk about some of our offerings. So first, we're going to talk about the standard drone marketing, which includes photos from a high altitude. I know I was enamored with the viewpoint of altitude for a long time. As a kid, I flew rockets and kites and put cameras on things that probably shouldn't have had cameras just so I could get that viewpoint. So unless you're a private pilot or a diamond member in the airlines, you probably also appreciate that view, and I think most people do. So in addition to the high-level photos, the standard drone marketing features the close-up photos of the features, be it buildings or water features on the property. So let's start looking at some examples. So I just want to let everybody know that I am the former CTO, Chief Technical Officer of Homes.com, and I managed web properties that received 30 million monthly unique viewers. So I'm very familiar with websites. So you're going to get some website insights today that you wouldn't potentially expect from a drone guy. I can't help myself as I surveyed the 20 or so sites that you can promote your land and sell land, market your land. I made some notations about some things that I saw going on there, and I'm going to share some of that with you. And it's not to endorse any particular site or put down any particular site. It's just to educate you all so that when you're figuring out what to do with your listing sites, you have some more background about what you like and what you would like them to do. Maybe make feature enhancement requests or something like that, or just promote the best practices in promoting listings. All right. So these kind of images are certainly familiar with you. This one from National Land Realty is typical, maybe a better quality than usual, and it's just the combination of the quality of the camera and the image and the sunshine, etc. I noted on this image that the logo is embedded in the image, which means if someone right clicks and tries to save this image, their brand is going to be copied there. And I'm imagining if a broker's logo was embedded on the image, that would be awesome for the broker. So that's just a thought that you all can carry forward. Here's another example. I like this one because it features the land, but also the buildings in close-up, and then you see the land in the background. The arrow on the left indicates that this is one of many photos. So this is a typical viewer, one of 25 photos. There are obviously more photos available. I like the fact that the price and the address is in close proximity to this photo, so that the user is getting a great experience there, remembering where they are, because maybe they're looking at multiple listings, and also what the price of this property is. Here's another example and this is LoopNet. They offer prominent broker marketing. So if you all advertise on LoopNet, I imagine you would be happy to have your logo up there. And then again, the description of the property and the location of the property is there, and that's prominent, and these are good quality photos too. So I liked this one. I like this shot because of the contrast of the property that has the trees versus the properties that don't have the trees. I assume those are different properties, maybe not. Again, we see the arrows indicating that there are more photos available, pretty standard user interface there. I also noted there's no branding on these images. There's plenty of branding below that and address, etc., but the particular images don't have any branding. On this one, you see the name of the ranch, but you don't see the location. Again, no branding on the image, very nice image. On this one, there's a contact form by each of the images. So if you see in the viewer, hey, there's an image I'm interested in, you click on that, you see a larger version of the image, you see the contact form. So that's good for brokers to have a contact form by each image that somebody's interested in. However, having the Lending Tree advertising up at the top might be good for the website, good for Lending Tree, but not so good for you as a broker because it's taking away the focus. So we all understand we have to make revenue and we have to make our choices, and that's just an observation I made. And then there they have 3 more photos. You can click and see the additional 3 photos. So those are examples of images taken from a fairly high altitude. These are examples of features on those taken from a drone, obviously taken from some altitude. So we see those. These are taken at pretty good angles, and they are placing the objects in their surroundings. Like the one on the left, you can see that there's an actual runway next to that building, and then you can see the surroundings of the other buildings. So I pretty much liked all these images here. So you all are familiar with the standard drone marketing, and I just want to point out some things. Some of them may be obvious. Better imagery is going to happen on a sunny day where the colors pop. we like to take images at 3 zoom levels, not just 2. You have the high level shot of the entire property, a survey shot which indicates a smaller segment of the property, and then close-up shots of the features that you're particularly interested in, buildings, water features, etc. Also would like to point out that roofs are not interesting. Unfortunately, our drone pilots, they're enamored with the viewpoint from the altitude, and then they shoot down at a building and you're seeing an ugly roof instead of the face of the building, which is what people are really interested in. So we love drone shots of buildings, but we actually prefer our pilots to get a little bit lower than they might want to get those buildings and fill up the frame with the buildings, not just shoot them from far away. We love to see roads, fences, water references in the shots from drones so that people can place themselves in that image. Where are they? Where are they looking at? What direction are they shooting? We'd love you guys to watermark. I mean, I just think it's a great idea to watermark or put your logo on the images if possible. And try not to shoot people or vehicles. The viewer gets distracted by looking at people. You know, who are those people? Are they the owners? Are they prospects looking at the land? Are they workers? What kind of vehicles are there? Are they cars? Are they trucks? It's a distraction that you all don't need. Now, you can't always move the vehicles, but you try not to get them in there. And then the last point about standard drone marketing, and I noticed this by looking at these 20 sites, there were, maybe there's a property that has 40 images, and I click on one and I say, oh, that's great. It's a stand of trees on a gravel road. And I click on the next one and it's a stand of trees on a gravel road, maybe 20 feet down the road from that. And I click on another and another and another. It's 40 pictures, but 30 of them are pretty much the same thing. And so fewer better pictures is another good guideline. If you have features, you have 7 buildings and 3 water features, et cetera, certainly take a bunch of pictures, but it's not always true that more pictures is better. All right, now I want to get into some advanced drone marketing. First up is video. Then we're going to briefly touch on 360 panoramas, and I'm going to make a request that we all try to do better on property boundaries. And then I'm going to get into some more sophisticated discussion, which I touched on very briefly at our last meeting in Albuquerque, about orthomosaic maps and what can be done there. So jumping into video. The folks that have video of their property, they're leading with the video. I think that's a good idea. And in this case, you see the tab above that video link, which has video and photos. So obviously you can click on photos and see the photos, but they're leading with video. I think that's a good idea. This site has embedded the YouTube viewer so that when you click on that, it displays that video in the context of that page, and you stay on YouTube and YouTube embedded. So I think that's a good idea. This next one, same thing. They're leading with video, and they're letting you know that they also have 50 photos in addition to that video. They've also embedded the YouTube viewer. It could be YouTube, it could be Vimeo, another hosting service. And I just wanted to point out another thing, which is not drone related, but it's the breadcrumbs at the top. If you look up there, you see under the bar that says Texas, 75638, Dangerfield, Morris County, Texas, land for sale, home. And I went backwards on purpose because this is zip code 75638. It's in Dangerfield, it's in Morris County, it's in Texas. We could click on any of those and go backtrack. So if we've been looking at a lot of properties in Morris County, we could go back to Morris County and see that list and then select the next one if we wanted to. If we want to go back to Texas, we could do that. Those are called breadcrumbs. That's navigation that's very helpful. You might check to see what the navigation is on the listing sites that you're putting your listings on to see if they have that feature. It's a neat one. All right, so to sum up, tips for drone video. If you have video, the imagery is great. One of the guidelines for video is see the baby, see the baby, see the baby out. In other words, people watching video, they get the message quickly in video. You don't have to linger on something for 5 seconds when 2.5 seconds will do. So that's one tip I have for you. And I would say that that will line up to a 3 minutes max video. If people buy the property, they'll watch a 10-minute video, but while they're looking at properties to see if it's right for them, they don't want to spend more than 3 minutes. So 3 minutes max. If you don't have property lines in your video, which you're not going to, then you should start your video very early on in your video, zoom in on a map, show the property lines of that property, include the city names, give them a reference point for where this property exists. And then because I love drone video, and drone video is dramatic and wonderful, that's great, but mix in your land images, especially buildings and even the insides of buildings, into your drone video. That mix will be very useful for your users and very helpful, and make that whole video thing much better. Moving into more sophistication, adding music, titles, and voiceover. Music makes it dramatic. Titles are very useful for providing information, and if they're watching it on their phone and they can't afford to have the volume up, the titles can provide the information you need, and potentially a voiceover. I mean, you can get pretty sophisticated and expensive with some of these things. And then also, if you're using video, there's no reason not to use the latest techniques in time-lapse, reveals, orbits. We don't have to just take a straight shot of something. We can jazz it up just a little bit. Also throw your logo on there if possible. If your production company or production partner can put the logo on there, do that. And then we recommend YouTube or Vimeo hosting, because then you can host that and link that video from wherever. You can put that on other marketing materials, not just your listing site. You can have all of your employees share it with their friends. You know, you can print that on cards. So we like hosting it on YouTube or Vimeo rather than a proprietary hosting service. All right, so this is the beginning of some of our talk about advanced. National Land Realty is a website that I met the folks last year at the meeting that host this, and I think they're doing a great job. And I just want to point out, we have some of the features that they put here that are really pretty slick. So this is a 360 image, and I'm not going to do it live because that sometimes gets problematic on a shared webinar. But from this viewpoint, we can use our mouse and we can rotate 360 degrees and go around this view. But the neat thing about this, and it's augmented reality, the icon of the photo you're seeing there on the left and the red icon of the video that you're seeing on the right, those stay relative to the position. So as you spin around, they stay hovering over that spot in the land, and also those property boundaries stay relative to the land, so that as you spin around and look at this image, and you can look down and up and at the horizon and straight down, you see where those properties are, you see where those additional photo stills are available or where that video is available, and you can click on them from there and see those. And also this inset where the Google map is, that shows you where you're located in your 360-degree imagery, and that blue fan that fans out, that shows you the direction you're looking. And so you see where you are on that property line, and it's just a total, I know where I am in space here, and it's a very satisfying feeling as a consumer. So I'm going to view, pretend that we've scanned left a little bit or rotated left a little bit, and here's another view. And then you see the view we have there. We have another video we can look at, and these little eyes is information, and I clicked on this, the one in that little parcel, and it said this is an additional parcel that's available for $92,000 if you so desire. And then that's the eye for the information, and then it has additional still images there. So I want to applaud National Land Realty for what they've done here, rotating this 360-degree image and having the property boundaries stay there and stay visible is really cool. And I think that is something that we want to continue to do in DroneUp, and we'd like to see the brokers utilize this wherever possible. And if you can't put a 360 up with property boundaries, then that shot on the right these are shots of the same property. The shot on the right is a pretty neat photo. You can see the house and the road driveway leading up to the house. But it's nice to have a reference point to see where the property boundaries are. So just include a map with your property boundaries in there near your videos or in your set of photos. All right, now I want to get into some more sophisticated high-end drone possibilities, and the first thing is orthomosaic maps. So in an orthomosaic map, to create one, in this case, we're looking at a 47-acre piece of property. We're flying the drone at 200 feet altitude. We're having the drone go in a lawnmower pattern, shooting straight down, taking photos every X seconds, so that this entire pattern for this 47 acres captured 430 images. Then we stitch those 430 images together into what's called an orthomosaic map. All right, so what's the big deal? We can then superimpose that newly stitched together current 2D orthomosaic map on top of the Google map, so that you'll see the 18-month-old Google map that's not current all around this, but the area that we captured, you'll see a current version of it on the Google, on a viewer that superimposes the new, correct, accurate, current image on top of the Google map, and everybody's used to using the Google map and navigating around in it. In addition to that current map overlaid on the Google map, we can do things like this. We can measure. We can just click one point on the map, click another point on the map, and then measure that that's 523 feet from that property to that driveway access. We can also measure area, so we can just draw a polygon anywhere on there, and it will compute immediately that that's 2.789 acres. So the map's not just an accurate representation of what's happening, but you can do useful things like draw maps, take measurements. And here's another example. Here's a 47 acre property, or the 47 acre property, and the person who owned the property allowed a contractor who was working on roads to clear the land and then use fill dirt from the land. And taking this top-down picture, it's kind of hard for us to figure out what's going on there. Now, it doesn't have to be a construction project. This could be land that you're not going to disturb or take, but it's got relief to it, and there's elevation differences, but you're shooting straight down and you're not exactly sure what's going on with the elevation. So then after we take the 2D orthomosaic and we stitch together the orthomosaic, another benefit we get is we can do elevation analysis on that property. And we can adjust the slider and adjust the intensity of the colors of this, etc. So it's clear here in this case where the red part is higher elevation, the blue part is lower elevation. It's clear that something has happened on this side here, the blue side, and obviously that's where the dirt's been taken from because it's lower elevation. Well, how much lower elevation is there and what's going on there? Another aspect of this viewer software after you have your 2D orthomosaic map is you can draw a line from one part on the map to another part on the map, and not only will it tell you that that line is 880.4 feet long, but it will also give you an elevation profile such that you'll know that the terrace up top is 63 feet, the terrace in the middle is 50 feet, and the terrace at the bottom is 46 feet. So when we go back up here, we're going from 63 feet or so in the red down to 46 feet elevation in the blue. And that can be very useful information when someone's trying to evaluate what's going on that property and does it suit their needs. And then we have 3D maps. This is that same property. This is a 3D map where you see the black background instead of the blue horizon. You can spin this around and look at what are the actual terrain differences in the map. And again, it doesn't have to be recently hit with a front-end loader. It could be any kind of property, any kind of terrain, and including buildings. This is a 3D rendering of a road, and we can render complex objects like cars and buildings. And so you can see a 3D model of a piece of property that's got multiple buildings, silos, etc. And you can basically do a kind of a virtual tour as you're spinning around with your mouse and seeing that. So those are all more advanced viewing things that can happen with drone data. And it was just if we're sending the drone pilot anyway to capture some beauty shots of the property, why not spend a little bit more time, especially if we're talking about a property that's $1 million, $4 million, $6 million. A few more dollars spent here could help with the marketing and really provide a benefit to you and your customer and help you sell more stuff. So now we're on to the commercial part, which we'll do very quickly. DroneUp, we capture aerial data and we provide that to businesses using independent contractor pilots. We don't want to do the job unless it's going to provide a benefit to you and your customers. So that's what we do. We have 10,000 commercial pilots all over the United States. We can dispatch the right person with the right gear to do the right job. We will figure out what the mission should be. We'll dispatch the pilot, we'll QA the results, deliver them to you guaranteed. So I know many of you do your own drone things, and that's terrific. We endorse and embrace that. But if you run into a situation where you don't have capacity, your drone's down, you want something a little special done, give us a holler and we can help you out with that. We're in Virginia Beach, Virginia, but again, we cover nationwide. We use an app to deploy our pilots. The app rides around with them in their phone, in their pocket all the time. Each flight is insured. We just won a 50-state UAS services contract after 15 months of vetting, led by the state of Virginia. All 50 states are eligible to join on board. There were 92 companies that applied for this UAS services contract. 15 were awarded any piece of the country. Only 3 companies were awarded the entire country like we were, and for all the service categories. And only of those 3, we are the only one that has a nationwide network of pilots. So if you're looking for a company that's been vetted in terms of doing drone things, we are that company. We will provide free consulting and a free no obligation quote, and we can do affordable proof of concepts if you want to do something special or interesting. And that is my email address. And I really appreciate the opportunity. And I'll turn it back over to you, Amanda.
Joe, thank you so much again for presenting today and sharing with us the services that DroneUp provides. And so with that being said, I'm going to turn this over to our next presenter for today, terraPulse. terraPulse provides global long-term maps and information to expand the realtor scope. To learn more about terraPulse, I'd like to turn this over to Joe Sexton, the Chief Scientist and co-founder of terraPulse.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Joe.
Okay. And are you seeing my screen?
Yep.
Okay, good.
Yep, it looks good.
Okay, so thanks, Amanda, and actually thank you, Joe, as well. That was really informative for me. Sarah, my business partner and co-founder, is on the webinar as well. So Amanda's right. What we do is terraPulse applies machine learning to satellite imagery, global long-term satellite imagery, going back in some cases back to the 1970s, to map the current condition, the history, and even the potential of properties for different land uses. We do this for the U.S. Forest Service, the Bureau of Land Management, World Bank, entire countries, and through the Land Technology Accelerator program, we've been developing some services for individual agents and brokers and investors. So what I'm going to talk about today is 2 activities that are sort of central to the buying and selling process for land. And as chief scientist of a technology company, I'm going to tell you something that you already know. Landscape is changing. There are global economic changes that are changing the value and the uses and the ownership of land. And there are environmental changes that are essentially doing the same thing from the other direction. Economically, we've got an increased focus on food security. Trade wars are changing the use and value of land. A big push on green buying and investing out, especially in the timber market, especially out in the Pacific Northwest. Mass timber is, if it isn't affecting land values now, well, it is, and it will continue to do so. Carbon, the possibly a very sort of low rent value of land use, but enough to tip the scales for different buyers, and hemp. On the environment side, fires, droughts, floods, you've read the news, so I don't need to tell them to you that they're happening, but we can actually show you where and when they're happening. Meanwhile, the tools are changing. As better than me, Joe just led up with the online listing tools and the buyer expectations of information, Zillow and Redfin and Trulia in the residential space, and you can even buy farms and forests on these sites, but they don't do a very good job of telling a land buyer what they're looking for in land. You can search Zillow, Redfin, and Trulia for the number of bedrooms and baths in a house, but it can't tell you what type of tree is there, whether it's a pine or hardwood, or the acreage of field versus forest. And there's CoStar, the land.com, and LandHub and the other listing sites have similar functionality, but they don't really have that much additional data compared to what's available for the housing sites. So with all of the technology changing and the environment changing and the economy changing, buyers are responding, and they are changing too. Where there are more out-of-town buyers, more preemptive buyers, meaning they expect, based on probably having bought a house or two in the past online, they have an expectation of what they want in land, maybe general, maybe specific, and then they want you to go out and find it for them. And these remote buyers are investment-minded, data-driven, and remote. So I'm going to explain in the rest of this talk what is possible from space by applying machine learning to satellite imagery, the same imagery that you see on Google Maps or Bing Maps, that those color satellite images. By applying machine learning and artificial intelligence, we can extract information that describes the land values. So, and I'm going to do that through two tools that terraPulse provides. The first are terraPulse base maps and property data. So I'm using LandHub. Met Kevin May, the founder of LandHub, at in the exhibitor session, or the exhibitor room at the last RLI conference. Had a long talk. And the second is the land scouting tool. So using the LandHub website, so I've basically just wrapped their website around these terraPulse maps. So these are current satellite-based maps of land attributes. The way you use them is you select the map and search layers and host them on your web mapping application on your listing site, so that buyers can search and browse on your listing site. So often, so CoStar will have a listing site with many, many properties, and they will send you leads based on the information on their site. Now you can, as an agent, you can spend a lot of time sifting through those leads, trying to figure out what they are actually interested in buying. And then the leads or the prospective buyers you're losing that traffic back out to the other listing sites, because your site doesn't really have as many properties, and it doesn't have unique information. So what this does is allow your website to have unique information. So to look at a couple of these land use types and the information that is available from satellite imagery, for forests, we can, for any year and at 30-meter resolution, so within a parcel, the percentage of tree cover, the age of the forest, going back to 1984, whether it's hardwood or pine, or the fraction of hardwood versus pine, and then the harvest year and type, whether it was a pre-commercial thinning, a partial thinning, or a complete clear cut. Farms, what is available from satellite imagery is the historical productivity, the seasonality, So what is the typical start of the growing season, the end of the growing season, the what we call the amplitude of the growing season. So how much productivity is there? The current crop type for ranches, and what I'm showing on this map, I'll get into the maps in a little bit, but so the rangeland productivity, very similar to the crop productivity, the seasonality of that rangeland forage. And then this transcends lots of these uses, but the inundation, how frequently does this particular location flood? And that could be good in some regions, it could be bad in other regions. And then similarly to the plant productivity, what portion of the year is this location covered with snow? Hunting. I've interviewed many brokers, and a large portion of sales are people interested in recreational properties where they want to hunt. Now that could be a multiple use with a farm and a forest, it often is. And so similarly to these land uses, we can map the forage and the browse productivity. Again, that water cover and duration, that snow cover and duration, the viewshed area from any location on the property, how much land can you see? And this is useful, especially out west for where are you going to set up your glass? Where are you going to scout? Also for where are you going to, where's the best spot to put your cabin, honestly. And then a whole host of other data, terrain, climate, soils, that's just a sort of a catch-all. And what this allows you to do is to have more powerful listings on your specific site for you to attract and retain that web traffic, keep those prospective buyers that are probably coming in from a larger lead gen listing site onto your website. And once they come with their typically very emotional desire to buy land, what you're doing is you're giving them the data, the numbers to increase their confidence that they are getting the property that they want. So that they come with their heart and you can bring their brain along. And what this all ultimately does is it focuses these sellers onto the property that they want for faster closes. I'm getting a lot of background noise from someone. Okay, so the other tool that I want to show is somebody is giving a lot of feedback. Can you mute your microphone? Thank you. So the other tool that I want to show is, I'll just go right to it. This is the TerraView, the terraPulse. This is TerraView scouting tool, and this is the best way to show you what's possible. What we do, very familiar, is we take these satellite images and turn them into maps like this. This is 30-meter resolution tree canopy cover for the year. This is 2018, just for demonstration purposes. And then because we're looking at it over time, we can look at losses. So this is losses between 2010 and 2015. What you're seeing in the background there are the orange lines. Those are parcel boundaries. Now what you're looking at here is a map between 2010 and 2015 of all the clearings, the harvests, the wind throws, and the development across the southeastern United States. So there's 2010 to 2015. Here is in orange, 2015 to June of 2019. And then we'll have gains and losses and up to the age of the stand. Different colors on the map are the different ages. That's a sampling of what's possible for forests. Agriculture, here's a USDA map of the crop type. For water, here's a good way of looking at, let's go somewhere interesting. This is the inundation frequency. So within the year, this is 2018, out of all of the cloud-free and snow-free, not much snow here, but all the cloud-free and snow-free looks that satellite image got, what percentage of them were covered by water? And that's useful for duck hunters. This is the rice growing region of California. The list goes on. On that rangeland quality indices, let's go to Utah. So we can take those data, and we work with, as I said, we work with U.S. Forest Service, the Bureau of Land Management, state agencies, and we work with them to provide maps, or to provide maps of wildlife habitat quality. And we're doing this to help the state agencies know where the deer and elk and antelope are. And we can also provide that to agents. So this is the carrying capacity of mule deer across the state of Utah in the month of November, based on historical potential. Let's see. A big opportunity, and I could go on and on for this, but I just want to show one thing really quickly. So here's a big opportunity that I like to show. This is a forest loss event west of Santa Fe, New Mexico. Our maps show that it happened between 2010 and 2015. So I can click on this location and it will retrieve for me. Sorry, we're running onto web traffic problems with the webinar, so we're gonna have to wait a couple extra seconds than we usually do. There you go. Okay, so through this scouting tool, through this time series of satellite maps, we can mine backward through time and look at the vegetation productivity of that location back to, in this case, 2000. So you see that was a very productive spot. Boom, 2011, this is a fire. 2012, it was basically scorched earth. 2013, it came back. And then in 2014, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, what you're looking at is the signal of a highly, highly productive rangeland. So a large scale investor would be looking at this land and saying, well, it's no longer a forest. I drove around this spot when we saw this disturbance, and there are for sale signs all around here because the sellers are selling like they just lost a forest. And what could be communicated to either them and or to the buyers is that what has happened now is that this land has been converted into very high quality ranch land. And without going into too many more examples, because I could go on and on, I'll just back out to say the high level picture of, it's a web mapping application with current and historical data, interactive map layers, and time serial charts so that you can evaluate properties from your office without driving out and doing the on location scouting and scout that land over very large regions. And importantly, a seller does not have to list this information onto their property for you to access it. So for those preemptive buyers who are calling you up and saying, I want a 25-year-old pine forest in somewhere within the 25-mile drive of Savannah, Georgia, or anywhere in Alabama, or it doesn't have to be listed so that you can scout those properties preemptively and then reach out to the owners. So those are the two tools. We're taking orders that now for 2020. Just a little bit of a pitch there, but with that, I think we can open it up to the question section.
Joe, thank you so much again for sharing your services of terraPulse. And so with that being said, we will now move into the Q&A section of this webinar. And to do so, you can either unmute yourself and ask your question over the audio, or for those that are not hooked up with a microphone, there is another option as well as through the chat function. you'll see at the bottom of your screen, there should be a bubble icon that says chat. You can click on that and type in your question, and we'll have that answered for you. So does anyone have any questions today for Joe with DroneUp or Joe with terraPulse? Does anybody have any questions? If we don't have any questions for today, I would like to thank our presenters again, Joe Fuller from DroneUp and Joe Sexton from terraPulse. Also, feel free if you have any additional questions. Oh, excuse me, something came through. Oh, costs. We do have a question from one of our attendees for both services, DroneUp and terraPulse. They're asking what are the costs of your services?
And so this is Joe with DroneUp. I'll go first. There are companies that will do a preset set of imagery for as low as I think $150. And then if you want the 360-degree images, you're going to pay maybe $89 for the first one and $49 or $59 for each additional one. We're probably looking at, for the more sophisticated stuff like taking 2D orthos, et cetera, you're talking $400 to $700 depending on exactly what you want and how big your property is.
And then this is Joe Sexton from terraPulse. The pricing for the e-scouting tool is variable. We've got statewide, national, and global pricing. So for that, just give us a call, click on the link on our website, and we'll set up a consultation. For the base maps and parcel data, we are doing it. We're just now launching this service, so we have a price now of $100 per layer per state month, or $1,000 a year. And then for the parcel data, it's $1.50 per layer per parcel per month for the listing.
Hey. Better hurry up. Amanda, did you mute?
I'm here, yes. Joe?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that you were still there and weren't talking.
Yeah, no, I'm still here. Yeah, I was just closing everything up because I see just what's coming through on the group chat is everyone's thanking you all for logging on today and sharing your services. So thank you again, Joe. I really greatly appreciate it.
It's been great. Thanks for the invitation, and it was great collaborating with Joe, too.
Wonderful. Thank you again.